Recording in progress.
Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2, check ignition, and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way, and the stars look very different today. For here
579 test. That sounding okay? Testing, testing, 17529. No feedback that I can tell.
Okay, thank you. Am I sitting in a tin can? Far above the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do. Though I'm past 100,000 miles, I'm feeling very scared, and I think my spaceship knows which way to go. Tell my wife I love her very much. She knows. Ground control to Major Tom, your circuit's dead. There's something wrong. Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear? Am I floating on my tin can? Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do. Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither wildly as they slip away across the universe. Pools of sorrow, waves of joy are drifting through my opened mind, possessing and caressing me. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. Images of broken light which dance before me like a million eyes. They call me on and on across the universe. Floats me under like a restless wind inside a letterbox. They tumble blindly as they make their way across the universe. Jackaroo David. Oh, nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Sounds of laughter, shades of life are ringing through my open ears, inciting and inviting me. Limitless undying love which shines around me like a million suns. It calls me on and on across the universe. Jackaroo David. Oh, nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Jackaroo David. Jackaroo
Well, I came upon a child of God who was walking along the road, and asked him, "Tell me, where are you going?" He told me, said, "I'm going down to Yasna's farm, gonna join in a rock and roll band. Got to get back to the land," said my soul free. We are stardust, we are gold, we are building your own car, and we got to get ourselves back to the garden. Where they cannot walk beside you, I have come to lose the small, and I feel myself to be a call, something turning. Maybe it's the time of year, yes, and maybe it's the time of year, and I don't know what life is for learning. We are stardust, we are gold, we are building your own car, and we got to get ourselves back to the garden. got to get ourselves back to the dark. By the time we got to Woodstock, we were heavenly strong. And everywhere was a sound and a celebration. And I dreamed I saw the burning death flames riding shotgun in the sky, turning into butterflies above our nation. We are stars, we are devils, we are caught in the devil's party, and we got to get ourselves back to the garden.
Find the cost of freedom buried in the ground. Mother Earth will swallow you, lay your body down. Find the cost of freedom buried in the ground. Mother Earth will swallow you, lay your body down.
Good morning. We ring this bell 3 times. The first is to recognize our origins, specifically our place in the cosmic timeline. We are born of this earth, which was born of the stars, so we and all life around us are repurposed stardust. The second bell calls us to recognize the complexity of billions and trillions of chemical and physical and social and societal reactions that we are part of that make up life on this planet. We are the regeneration of what has come before us and are caretakers of this land on which it happens. This land is temporarily in our possession. It was once cared for by the Muwekma tribe of the Ohlone people. And the third bell calls us into relationship with all which we were made from and all of the choices still before us. How we treat ourselves, each other, and the land on which we live will be a crucial determinant for the generations who succeed us. The quality of our thinking today will determine the quality of their living tomorrow.
I am trapped. I am trapped within this body, within this cranium, within this culture, within this time and place. Not able to connect directly with another. We are all separate, individual, alone. To extend ourselves beyond these limits is greatly dependent upon one's skills, innate abilities, and experiences. Many of us are limited in one way or another by something we lack in making that leap of connection. Still, we feel the need to be part of, engage with, forge an identity from something that gives meaning to our existence. We need to know where we fit in, what our purpose is, who needs us, what does not get done if we are not here, why we matter at all. Without this, we have lives that have no reason to get up in the morning, to struggle, to exist at all. Now, every existence has a context, a matrix within which we live out our lives. Every context has yet another context within which it lives. And thus it seems to us to go ad infinitum. History has covered the story of widening the contexts, geographically by knowledge of what lies beyond, where our tribe moves, our nation, our continent, the whole land, the globe, the solar system, the stars that we see, our galaxy, our universe. Now, we seek to give the universe a context with multiple multiverse hypotheses. Much speculation abounds as to what is at the edge of our universe, which does not have an edge. Socially, we ask, who is our sibling? Who is our neighbor? From within our band, our tribe, our nation, our race, our species, and we confront what it is our connection to those beyond our species. As horizons expand, we gain humility from knowing where we fit in a continually contracting place. We gain certainty from knowing the exact location in relation to all else. But we give up that sense of importance, the feeling that we matter. How little we become relative to all that is contradicts the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. It is scary. Here we have gathered in spite of the overwhelming insignificance that we have acquired by knowledge to bring back meaning. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. Welcome to Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Deanna Alm, and I am the president of the board. And we're so glad you've joined us this morning. Unitarian Universalism is a radically inclusive, non-doctrinal, non-dogmatic, open-minded, and open-hearted faith. We are people who are coming at truth from all different paths. We gather together across different identities, experiences, and beliefs to affirm and promote the inherent worth of every person. Together, we see our job as to love the hate out of the world, heal the hurt in ourselves and one another, and be the change we'd like to see. We use chat in Zoom or our Joys and Concerns book, which is over there by the welcome table, in order to share personal milestones of importance, and these will be read aloud during the service. Maybe you're here for the first time. We've been reaching out and asking people to bring their friends because we think the world, especially now, needs some friendly places to gather and find encouragement and hope. We have social hour after the service where we get to visit with one another in breakout rooms if you're on Zoom or outside on the patio. The worship host will give you more information about this immediately after the service. In the meantime, we put a link to our weekly newsletter in the chat so you can see all of our events coming up, and we encourage you to join anything that speaks to you. I also want to let you know that our welcome email, welcome@mpuuc.org, and you can contact us there to request a newsletter or request other information. There are a few things that we would like to call your attention to. In-person attendees should be masked inside and outside of Cole Hall during the service. Because it is becoming apparent that vaccinated people can still spread the disease to others, we strongly encourage those who are in contact with unvaccinated children or unvaccinated or immunocompromised adults to attend services outside or via Zoom. We allow worship leaders, associates, and other service participants to be unmasked while speaking if they've disclosed that they are vaccinated and are 10 feet apart from others who may not be vaccinated. If you are eating or drinking after the service, please do so outside. More information is on the bulletin board over to this side or in Week on the Peak. And a reminder to please silence your electronic devices. Remember that this Friday, December 24th, is our Christmas Eve service. We will hold a service both here in Cole Hall and also online via Zoom, and it will start at 5 p.m. If you come in person to light candles, dress warmly because it'll be even colder than it is this morning. If you join us online, have a candle to join in our community candle lighting ritual. If you hear or see something in this morning's service that inspires you or makes you laugh or brings you hope, please do go ahead and tweet it or share it on social media or just tell a friend. We're trying to start a wave of love and justice with every gathering. Thank you so much for joining us.
Amber called her uncle, said we're up here for the holiday. Jane and I were having solstice, now we need a place to stay. And her Christ-loving uncle watched his wife hang Mary on a tree. He watched his son hang candy canes, all made with red dye number 3. He told his niece it's Christmas Eve. I know our life is not your style. She said, Christmas is like solstice, and we miss you, and it's been a while. So the Christians and the pagans sat together at the table, finding faith and common ground the best that they were able. And just before the meal was served, hands were held and prayers were said, sending hope for peace on earth to all their gods and goddesses. The food was great, the tree plugged in, the meal had gone without a hitch, till Timmy turned to Amber and said, is it true that you're a witch? His mom jumped up and said, the pies are burning, and she hit the kitchen. And it was Jane who spoke, she said, it's true your cousin's not a Christian. But we love trees, we love the snow, the friends we have, the world we share. And you find magic from your God, and we find magic everywhere. So the Christians and the pagans sat together at the table, finding faith and common ground the best that they were able. Where does magic come from? I think that magic's in the learning, because now when Christians sit with pagans, only pumpkin pies are burning. When Amber tried to do the dishes, her aunt said, really, no, don't bother. Amber's uncle saw how Amber looked like Tim and like her father. He thought about his brother, how they hadn't spoken in a year. He thought he'd call him up and say, it's Christmas and your daughter's here. He thought of fathers, sons, and brothers, saw his own son tug his sleeve, saying, can I be a pagan? Dad said, we'll discuss it when they leave. So the Christians and the pagans sat together at the table, finding faith and common ground the best that they were able, lighting trees in darkness, learning new ways from the old, and making sense of history and drawing warmth out of the cold.
Okay, please join with me in reciting these words which call us together as a community and with Unitarian Universalists across the globe. We light this chalice to remind ourselves to treat all people kindly, because we are all one family, to take good care of the earth, because it is our home, to live lives full of goodness and love, because that is how we shall become the best people we can be.
Once upon a time, in our very own galaxy, the Milky Way, a very large supernova star exploded. And when it exploded, it gave birth to a cluster of stars. One of them, an average yellow star, found itself next to a very large star known as a blue giant. The average yellow star was named Startle. It looked a lot like our own star, the sun. We think of our sun as powerful, but Startle didn't feel powerful. He felt small and weak compared to other stars, most of which were 1,000 times bigger and brighter. The giant blue star next to Startle was named Cosmo, and Startle looked up to him. They talked all the time, and Startle was in awe of Cosmo's ability to heat up and shine. They existed next to each other, with Cosmo shining bright, for 1,000,000 years or so, which is not very long in the life of a star. But then, one day, Cosmo began to shine even brighter. He started to complain about not feeling so very well. "All my life," Cosmo said, "I've been squeezing hydrogen together to make helium, but now I can feel something different happening." "You look brighter than ever," noted Startle. "I feel hot," replied Cosmo. "Hotter than ever. And with all this new heat, I'm making more than helium. I'm making more complicated stuff like oxygen, silicon, calcium, and iron, and even heavier elements." "That is so cool!" exclaimed Startle. "I want to do that." "Oh, be careful what you wish for," called out a comet passing by. The comet had been orbiting for a while and noticed a few things about Cosmo. The comet turned to Startle and said, "You better be careful, my little friend. I've seen this before." "What do you mean?" Startle asked. But just then Cosmo began to moan and rumble. "I don't feel so good," he wailed. And just then came an enormous explosion, and Startle was thrown for a loop. It took 100 years for the explosion to complete, which is the blink of an eye in the life of a star. By that time, the comet was coming by for a second time. "What happened to Cosmo?" Startle asked the comet. "I'm afraid your friend went supernova," the comet explained. "Whoa, did you see how bright he got? Where did he go?" "He hasn't gone anywhere. Or, more precisely, he's gone everywhere." "You mean—" "Yes," replied the comet. "Your friend has scattered across the universe, and all the elements he's made over his lifetime, like oxygen and silicon and calcium and metals, were all sent back into the universe." Startle looked very sad. "It may seem sad," the comet explained, "but think of it this way. There are 1,000,000 little miracles that are now possible because of your friend. I would encourage you to keep an eye on that third planet that is orbiting around you. It could turn out to be something very special." Startle kept an eye on that third planet, and after a few billion years, she saw something growing. All of a sudden, Startle realized how everything worked. She and Cosmo were born when another larger star exploded. Then, when Cosmo exploded, he made it possible for something else to be born. Startle finally realized that there was a cycle of life in the universe, and that when one thing finishes, it actually means the beginning for something else. And she finally realized her own place in that cycle. She was born from stardust, and she realized that she might one day become stardust again, just like Cosmo, but not without changing everything around her. And the best way for her to do that is do what she was born to do, which is to shine as bright and as far as she could. Hi. As you know, every year the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee hosts a Guest at Your Table program that helps us connect with partner organizations around the world. They introduce us to real people who are using our values to speak truth to power. We then have a chance to invite these inspiring leaders to dinner at our place, to have them help us imagine how we can support their efforts to bring about love and justice where it is needed. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Myra Dagyapa. Maya organizes the ethnic minorities in Burma and is calling for justice and accountability of the occupying military regime. Ethnic minorities there have long suffered violence and discrimination, including the 2017 genocide of the Rohingya Muslim minority, forcing more than 700,000 people to flee to neighboring Bangladesh. Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh make up the world's largest refugee camp. Here is a clip of Myra sharing about her first-hand experience with military brutality as a member of the ethnic minority and what she is doing to support the people of Burma today.
My name is Myra Dagyapa, a Karen activist from Karen State, Eastern Burma. And I am directing the U.S. Campaign for Burma Now, an organization that is committing to raise the awareness about the ethnic minorities and religious minorities in Burma, because the Burmese military was still committing human rights abuses on a daily basis. And the biggest drive for our fight for the ethnic minorities right now was inclusivity, because while abuses is differ from one ethnic group to another, we also have ethnic minorities who are fighting against one common enemy, which is the Burmese military junta. And so now, after the coup, we have a lot of information coming out from the country. That is why we're trying to also making sure that the voices of the ethnic minority is not lost. And it is very important that no voices is drawn out, but rather amplified. So that is what we're trying to do.
Thank you for inviting these justice partners to be guests at your table. These conversations turn into actual support and real justice.
We come together every Sunday and all throughout the week for more than ourselves. We come to support one another and the ministries that infuse worth and dignity into our children, our youth, our programs of learning and leadership, and our ministries in the larger world, including our efforts towards anti-racism and anti-oppression. To donate to Mission Peak UU congregation, there are instructions in your order of service, and it's the ones we repeat every week. mail a check to Mission Peak at our post office box, drop an envelope down at the mail drop box at our office, or pay online, though that one has a 3% surcharge. Okay. Please make a contribution towards these worthy causes by mailing your check, as I said. Thank you for supporting and sustaining the efforts of our members, friends, and staff. Your contributions make a loving, learning, and leadership more possible.
One of the things that allows us to find hope and meaning, especially in the hard times, is the love and the support we show one another. If you have a joy or concern that by sharing with this caring community might bring a measure of hope or healing or resilience, we invite you, if you're online, to write it in the chat, or if you are here in person, tackle Deanna before she gets up here with that book and put your joy or concern in there. And we will share it so that it helps connect us one to another. If your share is a little bit more personal, I invite you to contact me or Reverend Barbara that we might have a conversation together. If you would like to drop stones silently while the music plays, we invite you to come in stage right and drop stones, and we will begin that now.
On the turning away from the pale and downtrodden, and the words they say which we won't understand. Don't accept that what's happening it's just a case of other suffering, or you'll find that you're joining in the turning away. It's a sin that somehow light is changing to shadow and casting its shroud over all we have known. Unaware how the ranks have grown, driven on by a heart of stone, we could find that we're all alone in the dream of the pride. On the wings of the night, as the daytime is stirring, where the speechless unite in a silent accord. Using words you will find us strange, mesmerized as they light the flame. Feel the new wind of change on the wings of the night. No more turning away from the weak and the weary. No more turning away from the coldness inside. Just a world that all we must share. It's not enough just to stand and stare. Is
These are the joys and concerns that are alive in our hearts this morning. Start with the extreme joy of just learning a few seconds ago that indeed hell is not freezing over. It's just that we forgot to turn on the furnace in here this morning, so it is a little colder than usual. Have a tremendous joy for Peak Rocks and the music that they give us, and especially the great duty this week for Paul Quinn, who did the yeoman's work on both of our pieces of music, and personally for me, who thought that going into ministry meant that I would never again be able to listen to David Gilmour while I was working, and that is not true.
And one more stone for all of those thoughts and concerns and joys that are just too tender or private to express right now. Remember, you are all in our hearts. Thank you.
Please join with me in the spirit of this reflection. We are a few days away from Christmas. Christmas is, of course, complicated. It's many things to many people, but at its core, it is supposed to be a story about beginnings. Every religion has a story about beginnings, birth stories. Christmas is Christianity's central birth story, how it all began. And more importantly, how it's possible to trace everything back to some inarguably sacred or miraculous event. When I was relatively young, I tried reading the Bible for myself to see if I could discover that sacred source that it was talking about, trace it back to its earliest roots, and I quickly came across both what I was looking for and one of the most confounding and frustrating parts of the Bible. I'm speaking of all the begats. Asa begat Josaphat, Josaphat begat Joram, Joram begat Ozias. You get the picture. It wasn't until seminary that someone explained to me that this was actually just what I was looking for. Various authors attempting to trace the whole story back to the very origins which are considered sacred. Jesus' origins, which is what the Christmas story is about, are traced back twice in the Gospels by two different authors. And interestingly, the two versions contradict each other. Matthew, who was a Jew, traces back Jesus' origins to Abraham, the father of the Jews. But a few chapters later, Luke one-ups him and traces back Jesus' origin even further back to Adam and Eve, the first human beings. With that in mind, I became curious about studying the Bible, why Jesus' origins would go back only so far as the first human beings. It says, after all, in the book of Genesis, that before God created Adam and Eve, that he created creatures of the land. Before that, he made the creatures of the sea, and the sun, and the moon, and the stars, and dry land, and before that, light. In fact, the first words of the Bible are, "In the beginning, darkness was on the face of the deep." It seems to me that in this season of darkness, would we not want to trace our origins back to that? If we did, what sacred or holy thing would we find? And how would it better help us tap into the cosmic imagination that we are needing today and still be true to the reality of everything we see around us? And how would it help us make sense of Christmas?
Whenever life gets you down, Mrs. Brown, and things seem hard or tough, and people are stupid, obnoxious. Whenever life gets you down, Mrs. Brown, and things seem hard or tough, and people are stupid, obnoxious, or daft, and you feel that you've had quite enough, just remember that you're standing on a planet that's evolving and revolving at 900 miles an hour. That's orbiting at 19 miles a second, so it's reckoned a sun that is the source of all our power. The sun, you and me, and all the stars that we can see are moving at 1,000,000 miles a day in an outer spiral arm at 40,000 miles an hour of the galaxy we call the Milky Way. Our galaxy itself contains 100 billion stars. It's 100,000 light years side to side. It bulges in the middle, 16,000 light years thick, but out by us it's just 3,000 light years wide. We're 30,000 light years from galactic central point. We go around every 200 million years. Our galaxy is only one of millions of billions in this amazing and expanding universe. La da 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 dum. La da 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 dum. La da 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 da. La da 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 dum. La da 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 dum. La da dum. The universe itself keeps on expanding and expanding in all of the directions it can whiz. As fast as it can go, the speed of light, you know, 12 million miles a minute, and that's the fastest speed there is. So remember when you're feeling very small and insecure, how amazingly unlikely is your birth. And pray that there's intelligent life somewhere out in space, 'cause there's bugger all down here on Earth. La da 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 dum. La da 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 dum.
That certainly qualifies as a high point in my ministerial career. I love Christmas. I love the stories, I love the music, I love the spirit. I love that it speaks of light at the darkest time of year. And all these things would lead me to say, I actually believe in Christmas. That said, I sometimes struggle believing many of the details that were laid out by the generations of Christians who helped forge the story of Christmas. Specifically, I question the choice of December 25th. It was supposedly the date of Jesus' birth, but we know that it was actually chosen nearly 350 years after Jesus' actual birth by people who were clearly more interested in some of the political connotations, and especially of trying to combine the need for emerging Christian communities to celebrate alongside of the waning communities that were already celebrating festivals of Mithras and Saturnalia. But today, I want to share an interesting piece of empirical evidence that sets December 25th as an essential day to commemorate a holy birth. And it comes from slightly outside the Christian community, from an interdisciplinary branch of education known as Big History. Now, Big History is a term coined by history professor David Christian at the university in Sydney, Australia. And he formed it by piecing together ideas from a great number of interdisciplinary thinkers over time. People like Darwin or Teilhard de Chardin, Huxley, Bronowski, or other innovators like Carl Sagan or Thomas Berry, Brian Swimme, or Neil deGrasse Tyson. And what he noticed is that something interesting begins to emerge when you integrate all of those different data points, all of those different insights into a multifaceted story. It's a story that reveals where we came from, a little bit about who we are, and if we pay attention, a little bit about where we may be going. We know one great communicator of that story of big history, Michael Dowd, who you might remember spoke to us last spring. About 15 years ago, he and Connie Barlow, who is the author of the children's story that we did, were on a speaking tour of the United States and stayed with me in Monterey for a week. And they told me about the great story and how he had helped develop what he called a cosmic timeline. The cosmic timeline is something that I wish to share with you today, and it compresses our entire evolutionary history, 14.4 billion years, into a single century, a single 100-year period. It means that every decade on the cosmic timeline actually equals 1.44 billion actual years. And every cosmic year equals 140 million actual years. And every cosmic day is 400,000 actual years. And every cosmic minute represents 250 actual years. And the sad news about all of that is that it means that my sermon this morning will actually take about 5 millennium. In the beginning, 0 hour, there was darkness. All matter and form in the universe was condensed into infinite mass and 0 volume. How all of that energy could be contained in one single point of time and space is the great mystery of our origin. At exactly 1 second past midnight on January 1st of year 0, an immense explosion dispersed in the universe and spread hydrogen gas all throughout. The explosion was so powerful it lasted clear into the next cosmic day, which is actually nearly 1 million years. In various regions of the universe, hydrogen gas localized together into intense gravitational fields, pressurizing to temperatures between 1,000 and 30,000 degrees Celsius, thus birthing stars. The process occurred in countless places simultaneously throughout space, and stars emerged and then clustered together into gravitational regions throughout days 2 through 8. This was the birth of all the galaxies. Now, it was so hot and so pressurized in the bellies of stars that hydrogen atoms were converted by a process known as nuclear fusion into more complex elements. This is how all the elements in the periodic chart were created: carbon and silicon, oxygen, gold, and so on. Each element is simply distinguished by the number of hydrogen atoms that were fused together in the belly of stars using that immense heat. For the first 60 years on the cosmic timeline, the first almost 2/3 of the cosmic timeline, stars were continuously being born, burning out, and new stars coming into being. Expiring stars often exploded, sending their elements of their core hurtling throughout space, and these molten masses would cool and form asteroids or planets or moons. Thus, everything that has mass anywhere in the universe can trace its origin to star stuff. So in other words, we ourselves, having evolved out of the Earth's elements, are literally made of stardust. Stars explode, new stars form, planets are made, a whole lot of begats were required in the making of this universe. Our solar system was formed in the 67th year of the cosmic timeline, 2/3 throughout all of existence. By some miracle, truly a miracle, Earth fell into that exact orbit with a small star at the exact distance required to maintain a very narrow band of atmospheric pressures and temperatures to allow water to exist in liquid form. In the 69th year of the cosmic timeline, Earth cooled below the boiling point of water. While the temperature of Earth cooled, the water vapor condensed and it rained constantly, even in California. This lasted eons. It is interesting to know that with the exception of some icy comets that struck the planet millions of years ago, all the water on Earth today existed at the time of Earth's formation. No water has been created since then, only recycled and filtered through the atmosphere, so that every glass of water you drink has trace atoms of dinosaurs, as well as atoms of Jesus, as well as atoms of Hitler, and all are stardust. Sometime in the 7th decade of the cosmic timeline, Earth reached its current temperature. Under the pressure of the Earth's surface, different elements came together to form molecules. Molecules begat linked molecules. Linked molecules begat the first, most primitive form of bacteria, which was single-cell prokaryotic bacteria, little cells of life without a nucleus. It took another billion years, or 7 years on the cosmic timeline, for those prokaryotic cells to finally find their way to the surface of water. But when they did, they begat a new evolutionary process, harnessing energy from the sunlight. And they birthed a new kind of cell, one capable of photosynthesis. Those new photosynthetic creatures used the sun's energy to break down water into hydrogen and oxygen. And they integrated the hydrogen into their new molecular form and released oxygen out into the atmosphere. After a decade on the cosmic timeline and doing that process over and over, 1.5 billion years in actual time, the atmosphere became saturated with oxygen and bacteria all over the planet began to die. Facing extinction, these formerly competitive prokaryotic bacteria cells begat an evolutionary process of joining together to produce eukaryotic cells, or nucleated cells that contain DNA. DNA provided a blueprint of replication, and this revealed one of the central truths of all evolution, that cooperative entities will always outcompete and outsurvive non-cooperative entities. All birth and evolution to this point took 13 billion years, or 9 of the 10 decades on the cosmic timeline. The final decade began with a monumental leap in evolutionary complexity when eukaryotic cells combined to create multicellularity. This is where different types of cells come together and enter a complex realm of cooperativity to form one interdependent organism, all the cells working together for one purpose. The next thing to come into play around January of '92 on the cosmic timeline was the introduction of sex. I know we may associate January of '92 with the inauguration of Bill Clinton, but that is simply coincidence. The development of sex was incredibly important because it brought together two different sets of DNA in reproduction and replication. And this meant diversity was able to expand exponentially. And diversity always promotes faster and more stable evolution. A quick side note. When we hear as Unitarian Universalists in our congregation, talk about diversity, and we have talked about it quite a bit. We often tend to refer to it as the quest for racial or ethnic diversity. And we ask, why would we want diversity? We need diversity not so we feel better about ourselves, but because it always allows faster and more stable evolution. Think about that. Around April of the 94th cosmic year, we begin to see heterotrophy, creatures eating other creatures. So let's go back for a second and reflect on the final chapter of Jesus' life, where we encounter Jesus introducing the people of his time to communion. Take, eat, this is my body which is given for you. This and heterotrophy in general may seem a little like cannibalism, but think of it from a larger perspective. In religious terms, it is really just the universe in new communion with itself. Around June of the year 95, better late than never, brains came into existence. Nervous systems developed. Shortly after that, around December of 95, when brains were still very, very, very tiny and not used for very much, sexual organs came into existence. I'll let you make your own joke about that. From vertebrate creatures, backbones came into existence around January of 96. Later that cosmic year, animals began coming onto land. And remember, when I say that same cosmic year, I'm still talking about 100 million actual years. Before all of that, before animals came on land, everything that I've mentioned up to this point happened in the water. Legs developed from amphibians in February of 98 on the cosmic timeline. Dinosaurs came into being around March of 98. They lasted until somewhere around May of 99 on the cosmic timeline. In February of 99, flowering plants and trees came into existence. And this may seem benign with respect to human lineage, but you have to stop and consider why flowers evolved to be so beautiful and to smell so alluring. And it's because they were intentionally designed to attract animals to them. Fruit trees surround their fruit with pulp, and inside the pulp are the seeds. The seeds are actually the fruit's children, the plant's children. So with all of that, the plant was actually trying to entice some animal to come and eat its children and then walk away and deposit those seeds in a fertile mound. It also is important to understand that outside the influences sometimes get thrown into this equation. In May of 99 on the cosmic timeline, which is actually about 65 million years ago, an asteroid the size roughly of Mount Everest hit off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula going 17 kilometers per second, or around 38,000 miles per hour. It hit the Earth with such an impact that at least 6 tsunamis were created, each over 300 feet tall. The crust of the Earth rippled so that on the exact opposite side of the planet, there was a lava outpouring in the Deccan Traps of India. To give you an idea of the sheer power of this particular event compared to, say, our power today, if you took all of the nuclear weapons that we have ever made on Earth and set them off all at the same place at the same time all at once, the event which took out the dinosaurs was 1,000 times more powerful. The asteroid strike set off a deluge of sulfuric acid rain and a huge cloud of dust that blocked light from the sun for several cosmological months. There was a great wave of extinctions, including nearly every land animal whose adult form weighed more than 50 pounds. The impact also triggered a global firestorm that incinerated a quarter of the living biomass, releasing an enormous amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere that increased the average global temperature by 20 degrees for 2.5 cosmic days, or 1,000,000 years. When you compare that to the stories in Luke and Matthew, it makes the threat of Herod seem pretty benign. All that I've discovered so far happened by May of 99 on the cosmic timeline, which means that we really only have 6 months left on the cosmic timeline. By June, 12 million years later, mammals were coming into being. The increasing size of brains also resulted in more complex emotions coming into play. Animals with hands and opposable thumbs came into existence around October of 99. And so I want to stop there for a second and notice that we're in the last 3 months of this cosmic timeline, and nothing that resembles what we think of today as civilization has even shown up yet. If we actually trace mathematically Homo habilis, or what they call handyman, the first beings to use stone tools, the first beings that could actually be called human, they came into existence somewhere during the day of December 25th in the last year of the cosmic timeline. On December 25th, humanity is born. So maybe all of those early Christian bishops, or more likely the Mithraeans or the pagans before them, really had it right. December 25th is the right day to talk about the birth of humanity. So what can we glean from all of this? The first thing, I think, is this. We do all of religion and evolution a great injustice if we think of Jesus or ourselves as the pinnacle of creation. None of us, not me or you or Jesus or Donald Trump or even Elon Musk, was born to be idolized. None of us was designed to become the be-all and end-all. All of us were put here to shepherd those who come after us in wise and in caring ways. Second, like Jesus' birth story, ours includes omens of crisis. We are born into troubled times, and much sacrifice is asked of us. We are actually ourselves, and our inability to communicate and cooperate with one another can sometimes be the weak link in the intelligence chain to bring about the best outcomes. Third, it is about time that we human beings paid special attention to our birth narrative and recognized something stunningly rare and important. We, human beings, are the very first species in all of this cosmic evolution to break a chain of cosmic laws that say that one subset of us will thrive at the expense of a whole. When we set up systems of racism or classism or sexism, we are insanely depriving the system of which we are a part with the diversity that it needs most. And finally, a question. What will save us? Carl Sagan said that at the end of his Cosmos series that we are the local embodiment of the cosmos grown into self-awareness. We've begun to contemplate our origins. We are star stuff pondering the stars. Or Teilhard de Chardin said something similar years earlier. The human person is the sum total of 15 billion years of unbroken evolution now thinking about itself. The scientist looking through a telescope is literally the universe looking back at itself. Before us all, this very day is the task of tracing our origins. Whether we trace our lineage back to Abraham or Adam, or dig up dinosaur bones, or peer through the Hubble telescope back at the universe, we are engaging in an attempt to trace everything back to a common, magnificent source. We do that not so that one part of our life can get the upper hand and demand compliance from the others. We do that to tap into our imagination and cultivate wonder and awe, to summon an appreciation and reverence for the variety of paths that exists around us, and find ways to converge together, and to realize that each of us holds a single key, all of which are needed for the success of navigating from chaos to cooperativity. Our story is sacred. Each thing that comes into existence will, like Carl Sagan predicts, eventually turn around and contemplate its origins. How could we not discover, like Jesus, that the kingdom is within us? How could we look back at this time, at this sacred source behind us, and not recognize the sacredness within us is what will determine what comes from us? May that be something that gives us pause and gives us a sense of reverence for one another. Amen.
Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither wildly as they slip away across the universe. Pools of sorrow, waves of joy are drifting through my opened mind, possessing and caressing me. Change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. Images of broken light which dance before me like a million eyes. They call me on and on across the universe. Floats me under like a restless wind inside a letterbox. They tumble blindly as they make their way across the universe. Like a rude day. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, and you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changing. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. The battle outside raging will soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changin'. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are a-changin'. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changin'.
And please join with me now in the words of extinguishing the chalice. They're up on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Reach out and rejoice. I don't have it on scientific evidence, but I'm not quite sure COVID can be transmitted under these extreme temperatures. We are in the midst of a 15 billion-year-old experiment to see if life will survive on a planet, and can we come up with a reliable, interdependent, reverent way of being together. I disagree with Monty Python that says that it's all bugger down here on Earth. I just believe that we're still in the midst of getting our act together. May we be those who act together, and may in that acting we reveal what love looks like. Amen, and blessed be. Thank you. That was bringing a little order from chaos.
Yes. It is a miracle.
It sounds like life has been a little chaotic at home.
Yeah.
And
there's always something going on, and there's always disruption to anything that are the best laid schemes of mice and men.
right. Well, and the holidays too also just bring about stuff and feelings and memories, and sometimes no place to go.